Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park, and thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today on this Friday afternoon. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney here to take a look at this 11 race card today, and it's a little on the warm side today, but we do have some excellent races on tap. We'll get to them in just a moment, but wanted to first fast forward a little bit to tomorrow afternoon. Acacia, we have 13 races on tap, and we do have some nice guaranteed pools once again.
We do, and we have a big pool in the Rainbow Six. Do take note, $600,000 guaranteed pool in the Rainbow Six, which will be on Saturday only if that jackpot is not hit today. So keep an eye on that Rainbow Six today. We were pretty close yesterday afternoon, but it did live another day. We'll have a carryover today, and then at $200,000 in the late pick 5 and $250,000 in late pick 4.
And yesterday was very difficult. My goodness, I was looking at some of the results yesterday, and well, first and foremost, I was way off, and
Me too.
We did have some really nice prices too. I thought that they might have taken down the Rainbow Six. What did 4 or 5 live singles going into the final leg?
I think yeah, 4 or 5. There were quite a few in the last leg, and it was actually a horse that did kind of figure, and it's still a little bit of a price. And so, as I said, lives another day, but keep an eye on that tomorrow. There's some Sharpies betting that sequence.
Absolutely, and we'll take a look at today's card, and of course, it is Friday. So you know what that means. It means it's Beat the Expert Day, and Ron Nicoletti is up. So he has a lot of weight on his shoulders because you did pretty well a couple weeks ago. I did a pretty good job last week with 4 winners, and today I thought a pretty manageable card. So we'll see how Ron Nicoletti does. He's got his game face on as usual.
Yeah, no pressure, Ron, but you got to keep the trend going. So hopefully he does put a good showing up today. He usually does. So it's always been a good time. A lot of people take part in this contest each week. So let us know that you're playing on Twitter, and don't forget to get your picks in before today's first post at 12:35.
Go to Facebook and go to our Gulfstream Park site on Facebook and do join the contest. And as Acacia said, 12:35 p.m. first post. Make sure you get your picks in there. Now we'll take a look at our featured wagers today with our wagering menu. We start things off in today's opener as usual with the 50-cent early pick 5 that takes place in races 1 through 5. As we move along to the second race, that is where the Super High 5 starts off, a carryover over $8,400, and that once again has to take place in races with 7 or more horses, and we did have a scratch in today's opener, so it starts in the second. Race 6 does start the 20-cent Rainbow Six. We have a carryover, big carryover, $333,000 in that sequence today. We'll take a look at my ticket later on. And race 7 does kick off the 50-cent late pick 5. Acacia will take a look at that too, at that sequence. We are fast and firm on the turf with a 12:35 p.m. first post for these 11 races. And as always, start us off in good fashion with your early pick 5 ticket.
Hopefully I can, because I'm singling right off the bat. Going to use my single in the first leg with Chepstow. Just a horse that's been in excellent form. Certainly an old war horse type. This 7-year-old gelding is going for his 4th win in a row. So he's going to be my single here in the opener, because I really did want to go a bit deeper in some of the later races. Did not think it was an easy sequence. So 3 by 3 using 4 horses in the 4th race, and then 3 in the 5th, $54 today.
All right, let's get Chepstow home. I picked this horse as well, 8 to 5 on the morning line, but we'll go back and show you the tenacious replay last time out between Chepstow and Good Time Had by All.
And Good Time Had by All is in this race here again today, and it was a 2-horse race in the Rough and Ready last time out. It seemed to kind of be a 2-horse race prior to that in the Claiming Crown Iron Horse. It was a little bit of a repeat of the stretch run, and it almost looks like Chepstow does welcome that challenge, and he is so game and just does not let the other horse go by. Poor Good Time Had by All just keeps trying to get by him and just hasn't been able to in their past few meetings. Now, Good Time Had by All did fire a dud 2 starts back, but he certainly came back with a game performance last time. Just as I said, Chepstow been in such great form lately and does show a lot of tenacity.
And the thing about Chepstow, too, is that he just looks like a horse that's much better on the lead, too. He just gains a whole new level of confidence. We could see it in that stretch run where he does not let any horses pass him. But today, Good Time Had by All could press him once again. But we also have the 6 Bit Growth, who I don't think really is on the same class level as the other 2 that we were talking about. But I do think could be a thorn in the side of several horses that do like, or that do prefer to be on the lead. So I think that would be the only Achilles heel for Chepstow in here. But I did use a 2 Chisel, just thinking that maybe that pace scenario might happen up front. And he looks like a horse that, although well beaten by this field and by Chepstow and Good Time Had by All last time out, he's been effective against them before. I think he just needs the right type of setup.
He does. I actually do prefer him slightly shorter, perhaps at the mile, though he is a 4-time winner at this mile and a 16th distance. He did actually run a good race in the Iron Horse, though he was kind of best of the rest behind those top 2.
I think you have a good single there in the opener. As we get to the second race, we will show you here it does start the Super High 5. Again, a reminder, $8,400 carryover, 5.5 furlongs on the main track for this nice maiden special weight. And we have a $550,000 purchase here at the Keeneland September sale, trained by no other than Todd Pletcher.
Of course, and we'll show you that stat. First-time starters at Gulfstream Park with 3-year-old fillies at sprint distances. Very specific stat there, but 30% win, 60% in the money. It is just a $1.62 ROI. I do expect, of course, this $550,000 purchase to be well bet, but there's some precocity in the pedigree. She's by Tappet, of course. The dam was a graded stakes winner and 4th in the grade 1 La Brea. She did win first out as well, so it looks like she just might have all of those things going for her in this field.
The mare was good early, as you said. She won first time out. She's also kin to a horse by the name of Rat-a-Tap-Tap, who did win first time out too. And she really won on, or that particular horse won on dirt, turf, synthetic, really multiple different surfaces. So this horse is bred to be a good one. And I think the reason, we always try to find a creative approach to try to beat these Todd Pletcher first-time starters because they are heavily bet. But you couldn't really find any statistics, at least I couldn't, backing up other trainers in here with other first-time starters.
That is the tough part. You and I both did land on Little Christina in the second spot. Several first-time starters in this field, and looking at stats there, first-time starters in maiden special weight. This barn, Carlo Vaccarezza, is 4 for 25 in the past 5 years. So it's not that it never happens, but it is on the smaller sample size. And there is a bit of precocity in this pedigree as well. This one, the Dam Unbridled Sydney, was a multiple stakes winner, multiple graded stakes place. She won it first asking. There was a sibling who did win it first asking as well. This filly by Mineshaft and Jose Ortiz in the saddle.
And it's funny because she is by Mineshaft, but on the bottom side there was a lot of liking towards turf. The mare actually did do very well on the turf, and she only really won on a sloppy track, and then the 2 other siblings also won on turf. So I thought that that was kind of intriguing in a way, but apparently these horses, or this particular horse, has been working well in the morning. The one Defy, I thought, had a speed advantage from the rail, and sometimes you just like horses with a little bit of experience. She just hasn't been able to sustain that speed.
No, she hasn't, and that's why I did put her a little bit further down the ticket, as it does look like her stamina maybe needs work. She comes out of a pretty good race last time out when cutting back in distance. We saw Ascertain come back and win with a 73 Beyer speed figure. Also, Katinka came out of that race and won in special weight as well with a 69 Beyer speed figure.
She could have speed from the rail and dictate. We'll see how long that lasts, though, as we get to the third race. Another maiden race, but a maiden $35,000 event. We're going out to the turf at the mile. Do note blinkers on the 1 Leroy's Mommy here. And you land on the 5 Majestic Trick, as do I. I thought she was coming out of good competition, and I thought her races in terms of competitiveness might have been a touch better than Front Row Debbie, who's 9 to 5.
I totally agree with you there. Now, of course, the kind of puzzle piece of this race is that maybe looking on paper, Front Row Debbie might get the lead in here and not really look back. Maybe with the blinkers to the rail, Leroy's Mommy will be more forwardly placed now, but you do kind of wonder where the pace will come from in this race. But the 5 Majestic Trick does have apprentice Carlos Hernandez in the saddle. And last time out, there was some bumping on the turn, and this horse was just stuck so wide. So I do think you can be more forgiving of her last race. That was also coming off a bit of a freshening. And her race 2 starts back. She did, yes, finish behind Leroy's Mommy, but she was beaten just a neck. I thought it was a strong performance from her. And just kind of looking at the other horses that promised to take money, I thought you might get a better price on this one, and I liked her a bit better than some of the favorites.
It looked like Majestic Trick was having a difficult time closing on that particular turf condition that day, so I thought that that could help her today. But you're right, there's not a tremendous amount of speed in here. Front row Debbie could potentially dictate in here. She looks like a horse that might be better forwardly placed, and I didn't like her last time out as the favorite, and kind of the same case here today is that she's already been exposed against maiden $15,000 company. She didn't manage to beat that field, so now at this level, gradually stepping back up in class, she kind of just races to her competition. One horse that could be forwardly placed, who I used 4th in here, was the 4 Vanishing Lady. She showed speed and stopped last time out. That was on the dirt. She didn't show that kind of speed on the turf before, but maybe the light bulbs click. Maybe she could be a pace presence in here.
Maybe it is, and she actually started at this level of maiden claiming company before they stepped her up to maiden special weight. So maybe you just didn't see any speed from her because she was just really outclassed early on in her career. So lots of questions about her. I took a bit of the wait and see approach, but it will be interesting to see how the pace scenario does shake out in this 3rd race.
Let's get to the 4th, an allowance optional claimer, 7 furlongs on the main track. Scratch the 2 white gold in here, and we do have a heavy favorite. Todd Pletcher looking to maybe have a very successful afternoon today, and maybe a very formful day, perhaps. The 6 Nana Bella coming off of a pretty impressive victory last time out.
It was, and of course there's precocity in the family as well. This filly is kin to both Nana's Boy and Grade 1 winner Outwork, and lots of precocity there from the mare. But we'll show this debut race where she did show quite a bit of speed, and she got the lead. Salty, the 2nd place finisher, was closing strongly on the outside. Nana Bella was the number 3 that day in the Rapoli stable Silks. Of course, flattered by the fact that Salty did come back with new connections and win in a maiden special weight company and get an 89 buyer speed figure for that. She's the 2 horse on the far outside. But I thought that Nana Bella was very game to hold on once she got the lead here, and other horses trying to close, trying to catch her, and she did manage to hold on and get the win at first asking as the favorite.
And as you said, I thought that she kind of shook off the challenge of the number 5, and then really shook off all of the challenges of the closers from off of the pace, including Salty, who ran a superb race with added distance in her next start, and she's got an outside post in the short field, and she's got speed. We see the 1 Corporate Queen to the inside. She looks like she's a closer. Worth Avenue, I don't think is as fast as the 6 Nana Bella. The others are just, I don't think, as fast, generally speaking, so she could just get loose on the lead once again.
That could certainly be the case, and if she runs and even improves a bit off of her maiden race, which I certainly do expect her to, it does look like she's absolutely the horse to be in here. The 4 Ascertain has been working sharply. She's had 2 races so far, stretches out a little bit to the 7 furlongs after breaking her maiden last time out. And looking at some stats for trainer Bill Mott with maiden winners last time out in dirt sprints, he's 26% win, 56% in the money, and just under an even ROI. So you do often see when horses get good, they do continue to stay good for this barn.
I did like the 1 Corporate Queen a little bit. I think that she could actually make a lateral move or even improve on a fast main track today. I just worry about the pace scenario in here, if she's really going to get the speed that she wants in front of her. So I did go with a little bit of a price for exacta purposes, but it looks like Nana Bella will be the horse to beat in the 4th. We take a look at the 5th race on the card, a maiden special weight, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf, and I thought this was a handy little race. I really was going back and forth between several horses. The 7 2 Exaggerates was one of them who I wound up landing on, but we'll show her replay coming down the stretch last time out.
And she was off a little slow last time out. I kind of wonder if she just wasn't ready or just sat in the gate a little bit. So you see the number 4. She does get off a little bit slow and is behind the rest of the field. And then in the stretch, actually we'll show the head on as well and see how she did kind of jump out of the gate a little bit just for another angle to see there. But then, as I said, in the stretch, she did look a bit bit green. Of course, this was her debut start for trainer Christophe Clement. She'll get some added distance here today. And you can see how wide she is coming around the turn as well. I thought more than anything, it was a very educational race for her because she had to deal with a lot of things. Now she's kind of trying to get her to switch leads. As I said, she does look a bit, or excuse me, he does look a bit green here. Does manage to get second. And I do think, as I said, it was an educational race for him. Added distance. Good work, Tebbit Payson.
I think that the 2 turns today is definitely the right move for this horse because he just kind of plopped out of the gate in his first start, and he had to do a lot to try to catch the field. We saw him be very wide in the final turn, but he was also lugging in coming down the stretch, which what we saw Javier Castellano trying to correct him several times. So I'm hoping that, as you said, he used that for educational purposes, and he's got it a little bit more together today. But we will show a cautionary stat here for trainer Christophe Clement over the past couple of years. Second-time starters on the turf at maiden special weight level, finishing in the money last out.
And you often do think maybe finishing in the money, they'll be able to take a step forward. The percentages are good, 27% win, 69% in the money, but it is a negative ROI, $1.76 in here. Certainly respect the connections, but I was proceeding with a little bit of caution with this horse. I did land on a first-time starter. I believe you had this horse in second, the number 2, Spite Swiftly. Just really liked the pedigree on this horse, liked the work tab as well. Now, first-time starters on the turf perhaps is not the strongest percentage move from the Cassie barn, though they did have a first-time starter on the turf. I believe it was last Sunday. And this one is a full sibling to Grade 3 winner Spitester. Just as I said, some beautiful pedigree. Turf winner, stakes winner Pyota Falls in the siblings. Jose Lascano in the saddle.
And Spitester was pretty good early, won first time out, won the Grade 3 Dwyer, but there was a little bit of dirt pedigree on the bottom side, but of course Spitestown's really can run on anything, so a lovely pedigree there with the 2 Spite Swiftly. So I liked that and the work tab, as you said. The 6 Homewood Field, though, I would imagine will get bet off of the connections alone. This horse is kin to a lot. And Chad Brown brings this horse to the turf here today. I thought that was kind of a head scratcher, given that he didn't run that badly first time out on the dirt.
No, he didn't. He actually received a 72 Beyer speed figure for his debut, and a lot was a 4-time turf winner. So maybe just seeing that and how successful he was on the grass. Had a couple other siblings that did win on the turf as well, but hasn't been seen since August either. So a little bit of curious questions with the 6 Homewood Field.
I guess the question, or the answer to our question would be that he is kin to a lot, and on the top side you get Sire by Candy Ride, so they obviously do like the turf. And there wasn't a tremendous amount of superstars in that race, considering it was a maiden special weight at Saratoga. So they weren't bad horses, just no real superstars. So maybe this is the right move, but you and I trying to beat that particular horse there to cap off the early pick 5. We will take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the 20-cent Rainbow 6 big carryover today and the late pick 5.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream today. Looking at the 20-cent Rainbow 6. Well, we'll get to it right now. We have a nice carryover today of $333,000. So I even kept my ticket on the more affordable side today. So just use this as a base. I did think that maybe the latter half of the card, there were a couple races that you could try to get creative in, and I thought those races really came in the first race. So spreading with several horses in the first, and I would have even used maybe more in the final leg of the sequence. Maybe throw in some prices, as some of the formful horses in there, they just cannot find the winner circle. So, and then using just 2 horses really in the body of the sequence here. So $48 flat for this, and 5 furlongs on the turf does start us off an open $16,000 claimer, Acacia. And I did have a tough time with this race. I thought that it was a very, very evenly matched field.
I had a very tough time with this race. So I like your tactic of spreading, because I got to this race when I was handicapping, and I don't know how long I ended up staring at it. So I ended up going with a horse that just seems to be moving in the right direction, and that's the number 5, Party All Night Long for Eddie Broom. And yes, this horse has been beaten by slim margins in the past couple of starts, which, you know, is a thing that I'm not really a fan of when it seems like a horse is not able to win. But I do think this 10-year-old horse, he's got the back class, that is for sure. Just even looking at him from a Beyer speed figure standpoint, on paper, he really does stand out. And as I said, his numbers are moving in the right direction as of late, running at this level. Last time out, he really was trying at the end. Little Baker, there was just no beating him that day. So giving Party All Night Long one more try.
And I could see it. I used him 4th. Of course, I used him in the first leg of the pick 6. As you said, he's just been beaten by slim margins. This is a horse who used to be competitive, kind of facing 2 other than Allowance Company. So you always wonder at 10 if he's headed in the right direction or the wrong direction. But he definitely has the class. He's earned over $500,000, an 11-time winner. The 7 Grand, the man, was where I did land. First off, the claim for Saffie Joseph Jr. He doesn't really claim a lot of turf sprinters, and for what it's worth, he's 2 for 4, 3 for 4 finishing in the money. So when they have run, they've run well, just not a big sample size. And it's not always, you can't always improve off of Jason's service, especially with his sprinters, but Saffie Joseph Jr. has done great work with his recent claims, and he's not that far off. I thought he did have some trouble as the beaten favorite last time out, and he just fits this level, and he's tactical. He doesn't need the lead. He can stalk. He can really work out his own trip. So that's where I did land here, but like I said, not really confident here.
Well, I totally agree with you, and if I was playing the 6, I would, if I was playing the pick 6, I would 100% use this horse, because I do think that he's got some tactical speed. I agree with you, and last time out, it looked like just several horses wanted to be on the front end. Everybody wanted to go to the lead, and he did have to steady very slightly in the stretch. He did get into a little bit of trouble, but I didn't think his race was terrible last time out, but I also didn't think it was great. You mentioned that Saffie's done a great job claiming just some really sharp claims, but we'll see if he is able to improve off of that barn. To the outside, the number 8, Morning Brew, though, you talk about consistency, and this horse is just as consistent as they come.
He really is. The last time that he finished really outside of the Superfecta was actually in July, but it's very infrequent that he runs off the board. So I thought he was a player in just terms of his consistency, and even the 9 Starship Wildcat, a horse I used, he's taking a big drop in class, but we haven't seen him since the summer here, but he was facing Stakes Company over the summer here at Gulfstream, so I did use him there in the mix as well. As we get to the 7th race on the card to kick off the final pick 5 of the day, we're going the 1-turn mile. Acacia, how did you see the sequence today?
I actually really liked the number 3, Assaulter, first, so scratching into a couple others, but we'll show you my pick 5 ticket, and I'm just using 2 horses here to start things off, but I'm going to actually spread in the 8th and 9th races using 4 deep in there, so no single for me here today. 2 by 3 by 4, 2 and 2 in the last, just keeping it at $48 since I found that single earlier on today. Couldn't find a single in the latter half of the card.
And those are the same 2 horses that I used too. I think we have to have a little bit of faith with a first-time starter at the top, Pletcher Barn, and then an alternative, maybe the John Service Trainee Champions Maternal. And that is where I did land. This is a horse who has run on a fast main track before. That was 2 starts back at Parks, and he really just faced primarily turf horses that scratched off and ran on the dirt that day. So I wouldn't say it was an exceptionally strong field. but it is still a drop in class, and I like the fact that he's listed as a first-time gelding, gets in with a lightweight, and does show that he can get into the game early. He's got some natural speed.
He certainly does. We'll show a cautionary stat for the barn in the past 5 years, going from turf to dirt in maiden claiming races is just 2 for 11. It's not the biggest sample size, 5 for 11 in the money and just $1.16 ROI. So also on top of perhaps not having much success in the win column, just hasn't really done it that much. You mentioned being a gelding and the lightweight, I do think will really help him to have speed from the outside, especially with that key scratch I alluded to earlier.
And the 4 laps, of course, you always have to proceed with a little bit of caution with a horse who was purchased for $375,000 at the sale and hung in for the $25,000 tag at first asking here. But sometimes we just see that Todd Pletcher just prepares his horses so well first time out that they're just better than the rest. So that's why I do think this horse might be vulnerable at a short price, but you have to use him in the pick 5.
You absolutely have to use him, and there was kind of a curious work tap as well. There was a break from when he was working up in August at Saratoga, and then wasn't seen again on the published works until January here at Palm Beach Downs. So a little bit of curious that, and then you mentioned being hung in for the tag after that big price tag at the sale. So proceeding with caution, but certainly would not leave him off.
And the 5 taken to church, just a quick thought about this horse. He obviously showed speed sprinting last time out. He does drop in class once again. This could be a horse that might just wire the field if he can sustain that speed. He's bred to handle the distance, but we'll see if he can do it there. I thought maybe an outsider that maybe had a little bit of a shot there as we get to the 8th race to kick off the final pick 4 of the day, going the mile on the turf, where this non-winners of 2 lifetime $16,000 tag. We did have a scratch in the middle of the race, but the 6 Schweetz was where you landed.
It is. I go to the outside, and I had a tough time with this race as well. So I kind of land on this horse by default. Corey Lannery climbing aboard, and last time out, you do see that Edgar Zayas lost his whip. I think that he's much better when he's a little bit closer to the pace, so he does have to work out a trip from the outside. But I was just kind of looking at everybody else in this field and just having a hard time narrowing in on anyone. Your top selection, the number 6 Palm d'Or, I certainly respect, but he's coming off of an 8-month layoff for trainer Ralph Nix. Then you have Menahune to the inside, taking the blinkers off, back to the turf, who just doesn't seem to like to win.
That's the thing, is that a lot of these horses are just racking up defeats. We have Menahune, 1 for 18, English Mahaver, 1 for 23. There's just several horses. Even the favorite who scratched, the 4 Sanad, was 1 for 21. So I thought that was a vulnerable favorite. So the reason why I picked Palm d'Or, we haven't seen him for quite some time, but and sometimes this isn't really the strongest angle for trainer Ralph Nix, but I think he's well spotted coming back, and I think he's really the lone speed. I can't see anybody else that's fast enough to go with him, because your horse Schweetz is a closer, Forever D's a closer, even Menahune doesn't seem to have enough speed on the turf. So I really thought that he could just have the tactical advantage, although he's probably not the best horse in the race.
He certainly could have the tactical advantage. It did take dropping down to 12-5, and he was bet down as the heavy favorite to break his maiden, but he did win by open lengths back in the summer. Coming off the layoff, as you said, is perhaps not the strongest angle, but maybe he will just run away from the rest of the field, and that'll be it.
We could even see Leverkusen run a good race, getting some class relief too. So I used him in there as well, just using 2 horses in the pick 6. We take a look at the 9th race, going 9 furlongs on the turf for this allowance optional claimer. And the favorite in here is the number 1 Red Rifle at 2-1. This horse does have tremendous amount of back class. We'll get to him in a second, Acacia, but I thought 2, I wouldn't say key scratches because I didn't really like them in the race, but of course with the 5 out and the 6 out, makes this field a little bit more compact.
It really does. And it's a compact field, and it's a competitive field as well. And I suppose we should start with the 2 Ice Cutter, who I use in the exact, and you did land on as well. But we'll go back and show his last race, because I thought this was a very good performance from him. He's now off the claim, now in the barn of Scooter Dickey from Christophe Clement. And 2 starts back, he was beaten by just a neck behind Ballarox, who did go on to win against a $100,000 optional claiming company. He's the number 5 here this day. Sky. And I remember really having questions about whether he was going to regress off of that big performance, but he put in another big performance in here. Highland Sky closing on the outside. He was just really sharp off the layoff for Barkley Tag, and Ice Cutter hung in there to get second.
And Highland Sky, he was the best horse of the race. You could even see the way that the bettors bet that race. He drew an outermost post position. He was coming off a very sizable layoff, and they still bet him down to the pretty heavy favorite in there. So he was just much the best, Highland Sky. And I thought Ice Cutter unfortunately faced another horse that was much the best in Bala Rocks, who proved legitimate in his next start too. So Ice Cutter, first off the claim for Scooter Dickey, that's where I did land, and he doesn't have to be that far off the pace. That's why I liked him in this kind of shorter field. He won't be compromised if it is a slow pace, because he's proved that he can be tactical, and Scooter Dickey does a great job with all of his turf horses that he sends out. But the 7, Jay Gatsby, is one who I loved him last time out in the Fort Lauderdale, but I sometimes think that trouble continues to find him.
He just seems to be a magnet for it a little bit. I'm giving him another chance today. Last time out, of course, Heart to Heart was the speed. He came back to show that speed. Next time out, winning the Grade 3 Canadian Turf. We saw the second place finisher, Almanar, come back to win the Grade 1 Gulfstream Park Turf with 102 Beyer speed figure. Flatline was a closer. It really did set up for closers last time out. And Jay Gatsby just didn't really close last time. I did have some reservations about him off of the bench last time. Maybe he needed that race. Maybe that's going to sharpen him up, and he'll be able to take a step forward here today. He certainly does have some strong races under his belt, being second to Heart in the Knickerbocker. So we'll see if he can take a step forward there today. I did use both of those horses on the pick 5.
I've been making excuses for him for so long. He was hindered by the pace in the Knickerbocker. He fell to his face in the Artie Schiller, couldn't make up ground on that turf that day. And then last time out, he was very, very wide, but he drew an outside post position, and Luis Saez taking him back to last, whereas I thought that if you got him in the body of the race and maybe try to save ground going into the turn, that would have been a better outcome, because he's not a horse that's got a really potent kick at the top of the stretch. So maybe this smaller field will help him sit closer to the pace and have a better outcome here. But Jay Gatsby, although I do like you very much, I'm taking a different approach today. Of course, Red Rifle, the reason why I went against him here, Acacia, and he was facing Grade 1 company 2 years ago. Last year when Todd brought him back, it looked like he wasn't really handled with a lot of confidence. They found an allowance, they found a Grade 3, kind of an overnight stake at Penn National, and he showed himself against that level of competition.
He did, and that's kind of what I was thinking too. I mean, his 2016 campaign wasn't really to the same caliber of his 2015 campaign at all. He's been working well since. His last race was in Grade 3 company on the synthetic, where he was last in a field of 5. So taking a cautionary approach with him. He's off a layoff as well. He hasn't really shown that he can run well fresh.
All right, well, we get to the 10th race, so 2 other than allowance optional claimer, 6 furlongs on the main track. This was another race that I had a little bit of a difficult time with, although only using 2 horses in here in the pick 6, and one of them being your top selection with the number 2, He's Got Talent, for Jorge Navarro.
And we'll go back and show his last race. It also includes 2 other horses in this field in French Quarter and Yellow Chips. We'll show all 3 of those. French Quarter at the 4 was the winner. He's Got Talent along the rail, and you see Yellow Chips almost off the screen. He was far back behind the rest of the field. Now, He's Got Talent was dueling on the front end early, and I think that French Quarter made that move. It ended up being about 4 horses across. Yellow Chips closing way behind, and I do think that He's Got Talent perhaps was maybe softened up by the duel early, giving him a little bit of a pass today. Did think that Yellow Chips closed again very nicely from far off of it.
And I thought French Quarter, and that's why I kind of flip-flopped with them, I thought French Quarter had the better of trips because he really had control pressing from the outside, whereas He Got Talent, he really did the majority of the dirty work, and then he ceded the lead as you would, going those fractions and being pressed the entire time. So that's why I thought moving forward it might be a better outcome for He's Got Talent. But French Quarter is still in here, and he's still posted to his outside, so we could see a similar case set up, and that's why I went with a long shot in here with the 6 Fast Friar. And I know a lot of people are going to think, well, maybe he was enhanced by a track that had moisture last time out. And it's funny when you see him in the paddock, he's a big, long, leggy horse, so you would think that distance would probably be preferred, but it's looking like that might not be the case. I think he's just a better one-run sprinter, and he should be able to get that right pace scenario today.
It was a good track last time out at Gulfstream. He did receive a 91 by our speed, figure 40, won by open lengths. I thought it was a really solid performance from him, and against a pretty solid field as well, so absolutely can respect him. The number 4, Springmeyer, has certainly been facing very strong competition, but his last 5 races were in the money finishes, both at Tampa and at Gulfstream, so thinking he might be able to get in the money again today.
He could kind of sit behind the speed here, but the one horse that we should really mention is the 5 Grand Billy. He's 5-2 on the morning line, Jose Ortiz in the saddle, and although Gustavo Delgado has had a little bit of a cold meet thus far, this horse was tackling grade 1, grade 3 company last year, or sorry, 2 years ago in 2015. He's a talented horse, but it just looks like there's been a lot of starts and stops in the past couple of years.
It does look like he's a hard horse to keep on the racetrack. That's why I did kind of decide to watch one today, but he certainly got the class. He is a grade 3 winner, so we'll see how he does on the return.
Let's get to the 11th and final race today. We're going 7.5 furlongs on the turf for this maiden $20,000 event. And, well, I had an idea in here. I tried to get creative, and it scratched. So the 2 Visky Jones, we're going to have to wait for another day. Really, really like this horse in here. So, unfortunately, I default to my second selection in Mojo Rising, who I wanted to go against from the get-go, but that's how it shook out for me.
And I almost picked Mojo Rising because I just had such a hard time looking at anybody else, but I just think this horse does not want to go by. His last 4 races were very good performances, but it just seems like he does kind of hang a little bit. So I just couldn't with any confidence put him on top today. And instead I have a horse that's 20-1 on the morning line in the 1 Disco Man, but I think that he's going to stalk from the rail in here. Last time out, he was squeezed back twice. He was checked rounding the first turn. He had a really tough trip last time out, and I do kind of think that this race is a little bit devoid of any sharp early speed, so he just might get in a perfect position to the rail. He does have Jose Ortiz in the saddle for Fernando Abreu, and I think that his race last time out was a bit more troubled than it appears on paper.
He's been well beaten in really many of his turf starts here, but I don't think that this is that tough of a field. I can't really foresee him being 20-1, especially with the scratch of the horse outside of him, because Jose Ortiz just takes a lot of money, because people look at fields like this and don't know what to do, and they're like, oh, well, Jose Ortiz decided on this horse, so I'm going to as well. So I think a good selection if you're looking for a little bit of a price. Other than that, you know, we're talking about Mojo Rising, who might just not have the will to win oftentimes. I think it could be a similar statement for Leroy's Image and Rediscover. Rediscover is a horse that just is stuck in second gear.
Rediscover, our friend, cutting back in distance now, tried the 9 furlongs last time, 0 for 15. And this is a horse, talk about finding trouble. He really does seem to find trouble. I certainly respect him. I use him in my top 3, just couldn't put him on top today.
If you want a crazy long shot in here that I was going to use in the pick 6 if I could afford it, was going to be the 8, My What About Me, just because he's run 1 race in his career that could be fast enough to beat this field, and that was 2 starts back against lower level maidens. But again, I think he's really hindered by the lack of overall pace in here. So kind of a crazy way to cap off the afternoon. We wish you luck. We wish Ron Nicoletti luck. It is Beat the Expert Day. So Ron, well, you're up. Make us proud. We're going to take a quick break, and Pete Aiello will be up next with those scratches and changes. Best of luck on this Friday afternoon.
We have to take care of these horses that, give us so much joy. Being a